The agreement that we have with Sony and what we're working on right now is just about Spider-Man into our universe, into the MCU. And I don't know much about it, but I know they're off to a good start with Tom Hardy.
Spider-Man Homecoming's 2 end credits scenes explained. Spoiler alert, Spider-Man Homecoming's 2 credits scenes are discussed in full below. There are 2 credits scenes at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming. One might figure into future Marvel films, while the other is nothing more than a playful, but worthwhile, joke. Mid- and post-credits scenes have become a Marvel tradition, something fans look forward to every time the company releases a new film. Sometimes they contain huge reveals that hint at future movies, see Black Panther at the end of Captain America: Civil War. Other times, they serve as little winks from Marvel to its biggest fans and call back to the company's history, see Howard the Duck at the end of the first Guardians of the Galaxy. They're fun. They can be exciting. And if we're lucky, they give us something to chew on until the studio's next big release. Here's what happens in Homecoming's 2 credits scenes and how the scenes are significant to both Spider-Man's and Marvel's future stories.
Spider-Man will be there. We're filming in Atlanta right now. It's going very well, and every day there are shots, there are images, there are pairing of characters you've never seen before on screen, and I do it because I geek out for these moments. I geek out for a moment like this, debuting a movie of Spider-Man in the MCU for the first time. On Infinity War, every single shot of every single scene is a geek out moment.
First, Vulture in prison. The first scene, which airs in the middle of the credits, functions more like an epilogue to the movie. We flash forward to some time in the near future, and Adrian Toomes, aka Vulture, Michael Keaton, is in prison. He's walking around and is confronted by a former associate who wants to know Spider-Man's identity. The man tells Toomes that he's heard Toomes knows who Spider-Man is. Toomes does indeed know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. In the film, he figures it out in the 3rd act, but he pretends otherwise. He flashes a sinister little look before the scene cuts out, possibly setting up the character's return in a future Marvel film. The scene hints that Toomes wants to take on Spider-Man himself, which makes sense considering how much Homecoming does to map out Toomes' moral code. At one point in the film, he passes up a chance to kill Peter Spider-Man because Peter previously saved his daughter's life. And later on in the film, Peter saves Toomes' life too. Homecoming's first credits scene signals that Toomes is doing Peter Parker a favor by not outing him, which would put all kinds of villains on his trail. But it also reveals that Toomes wants to handle Peter Parker himself. Second, a message from Captain America. Throughout the film, Captain America is used as a comedic prop. He appears in taped informational messages, like a PSA aimed at kids, that the teachers at Peter Parker's high school play for their students to teach them to be better citizens. One of the taped messages is about detention. Homecoming's second credits scene plays off these messages, giving us one final dispatch in which Captain America speaks about the value and virtue of patience. He addresses the audience directly and talks about how patience is necessary, while also noting that it isn't always rewarded. He explains that sometimes people end up waiting for a long time for something, and it isn't what they wanted or expected, just like this credits scene. Because of Marvel's long tradition of tease-heavy credits scenes, many fans may have expected to see something big or bold in Homecoming's credits scenes, possibly a hint at the fallout from Captain America: Civil War. Instead, Marvel served up this silly nothing burger with a knowing wink. The scene cuts out before a title card announces that Spider-Man will return to the big screen with a new film slated for 2019. No solid date has been set yet.
Peter Parker was always the funniest of the heroes. He's always making quips and stuff. And so we really leaned into that with this one. Not just in the jokes he says, but in the situations he finds himself in.
What are you hiding, Peter? I'm just kidding, I don't care. Bye.
It's very much a real high school filled with real students and real sort of problems of adolescence, girl troubles. That's why it's called Homecoming. There is a homecoming in the movie.
Yeah, it was a very loose atmosphere, and that they kind of gave us free rein to get as weird and subversive as we wanted to get with the character.
Spider-Man: Homecoming finds its footing with a less confident Spidey. At last, a Spider-Man movie. Says no one. The new Spider-Man: Homecoming, which celebrates Peter Parker's immigration to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is a headliner after his scene-stealing appearance in Captain America: Civil War last year, is, according to the most recent data available, the sixth big-screen Spidey flick since 2002. Who needs another? Well, if they're going to be as fizzy and funny and warm-hearted as this, keep 'em coming. A half-dozen features in 15 years isn't an especially spider-sense stimulating tally, especially for a blue-chip specimen of IP like a Webhead, the most singular and beloved of all Marvel Comics heroes. Ed. Note: send your angry emails to the reviewer, care of the Department of Getting Angry Emails. Any sense of fatigue comes from the frequency with which storytellers have restarted the clock. Cop Car director John Watts, like Mark Webb and Ryan Coogler before him, is an indie prodigy injected with super soldier serum and upscaled to studio tentpole general. The good news is that his is an energetic and confident vision of a confidence-deficient character, even though Watts is but one of a half-dozen writers who have their names on this thing. Sometimes committees work. Watts and Company's smartest move is to skip the familiar Stations of the Cross, the violent death of Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility, yada yada, and just get down to business. And business, happily, is less about staving off yet another existential threat to Manhattan Earth all human existence than about being a high school sophomore taking advanced placement classes in Queens and keeping an incredible secret. Bright and optimistic Homecoming plays like the photo negative of the somber, fatalistic Logan. What they share is a refreshing modesty of stakes. Like Christopher Nolan did in his trilogy of Batman films, Watts gets great results by investing in supporting characters who, in prior tellings, have been undernourished. Marissa Tomei is hugely enjoyable as Peter's Aunt May, sweetly oblivious to her effect on the boys and men in her orbit. Costume designer Louise Frogley's decision to dress Tomei in unflattering high-waisted pants is puzzling, since nothing else in Tomei's take on the character says from P-Mum. Jacob Batalon is all sweetness and enthusiasm as Peter's loyal friend Ned, who discovers the peculiar nature of Peter Stark Industries' internship and must sit on the juiciest piece of gossip in the history of high school. I wish Angourie Rice, the superb young Australian actor from The Nice Guys and The Beguiled, had more screen time as Peter's classmate Betty, but Tony Revolori, so great in the Grand Budapest Hotel 3 years ago, is perfectly cast as Peter's tormentor, Flash Thompson. Even the prestigious Midtown Science High School has jocks, bullies, and spoiled rich kids, and Flash is all three. Laura Harrier plays Liz, the girl Peter is too shy to talk to for more than few seconds at a time, and Zendaya is Michelle, an enigmatic girl who seems strangely obsessed with Peter. They're all on Midtown's academic decathlon team, one of the extracurricular activities feeling the pinch from Peter's all-consuming double life. In the best of the movie's many grace notes, these high schoolers are forever being subjected to educational videos starring that square-jawed old square, Captain America. Whichever of the 6 writers came up with this deserves a raise. Of course, the Marvel Universe's other grown-up, Robert Downey Jr. is here too. Peter's swaggering mentor Tony Stark, who recruited him for that thing in Berlin last year, which Homecoming efficiently recaps via Peter's hyperventilating video diary, is keeping tabs on him from afar. He's assigned aide-de-camp Happy Hogan, Jon Favreau, who directed the first 2 Iron Man movies back when the Marvel Empire was just a beachhead, to serve as the kid's point of contact. So Peter does what any 15-year-old with the proportional speed, strength, and agility of an arachnid would do. He calls and texts Happy constantly, just, casually inquiring about when his next mission as of an auxiliary Avenger might be happening. There's a nice comic symmetry in having Favreau be the recipient of these voicemails, recalling the painful scene where he humiliated himself into his crush's answering machine in Swingers the year that current Spider-Man Tom Holland was hatched.
I would steal their golf carts and race around Pinewood Studios. I would disappear for hours on end, just because they didn't need me for hours on end.
About that, Mr. Holland. Previous 21st century Spideys Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were 26 and 28 in their respective web-slinging debuts. Newcomer Holland, a limber, likable veteran of the West End production of Billy Elliot the Musical, was 19 when he shot his bit in Civil War, and that's a huge, movie-improving difference. A 35-year-old Peter Parker is about as unique and interesting as a 35-year-old Romeo Montague. In the comics, Peter at one point grew up to marry Mary Jane Watson, a creative misstep so egregious that a later regime at Marvel Comics had the marriage retroactively annulled by a demon. Look it up. Youthful impetuousness makes him a character rather than another abstraction of pure virtue. Homecoming leans into that learning curve. Like the Green 007 of Casino Royale, Peter spends most of the movie screwing up. In one shaky shift, he accosts a man who's trying to break into his own car, recovers a stolen bicycle, but can't find the victim, and then finally triumphs at directing an elderly woman to the subway. She rewards his super Samaritanism by buying him a churro. This stuff works like gangbusters as comedy, but also gently underscores the with great power theme without being all preachy about it. The movie's entire premise is that Peter is trying to insert himself into the world as an agent of good before he's quite developed the maturity and judgment to avoid making things worse. Homecoming isn't perfect. The cold open, which introduces Batman and Birdman emerita as Michael Keaton as an appropriately street-level malefactor named the Vulture, is marred by clunky exposition, a conspicuous reference to a deep-cut early 90s Marvel title, and a Rolling Stones song that clashes with the movie's otherwise adroit soundtracking. The Ramans are featured prominently incorrectly. Like Peter Parker, they're just lower-middle-class boys from Forest Hills, Queens. But it quickly finds its footing. Watts has a poppy visual sense and a firm command of the frame. One sequence, wherein an injured and demoralized Peter must extricate himself from a pile of rubble, is a loving homage to a famous sequence of Steve Ditko panels from Amazing Spider-Man number 33, published 51 years ago. Homecoming is the kind of winning film that could set him up for another half-century. Or at least until Holland is a washed-up 27-year-old.
I mean, we're on Hollywood Boulevard and all these people are here to see Spider-Man, and I'm Spider-Man, so it's crazy. I can't believe it.